Hello, beautiful souls, and welcome back to Gaia Sanctorum. Let me set the stage for you. 3 years into therapy, eating organic, meditating daily, yoga every morning, and you still wake up feeling like you're living someone else's life. Like there's this persistent whisper saying, this isn't it. This isn't what you came here to do. Here's what nobody's telling you. You're not broken. You're not doing it wrong. You're just working on the wrong body. Most wellness practitioners stop at 4 dimensions: physical, mental, emotional, energetic. But there's a 5th body that holds the blueprint for why you're actually here on this earth. And when that body is out of alignment, nothing else quite works, no matter how perfect things look on the surface. I'm Danielle, and I'm an herbalist with over 30 years in food as medicine and plant medicine. And today we're going deep into the spiritual and soul karmic body, the dimension that every traditional healing system knew about, but modern wellness kind of forgot. If this is your first time here, I work with what I call a 5 bodies framework. It is a comprehensive system for understanding health that goes way beyond just eat your vegetables and think positive thoughts. So far in these videos, we've covered the physical body, which is your literal flesh and bones, organs, the machine that carries you through life. We've talked about the mental body, which is your cognitive patterns, beliefs, and the stories that you tell yourself. We've talked about the emotional body, which is how you process and express feelings, and also the energetic body, which is your ki, your prana, the vital force that really animates everything. But here's what I've learned through 3 decades of practice. You can heal all 4 bodies and still feel fundamentally unfulfilled and still feel like you're missing something, still feel like you're not living your purpose. And that's because the 5th body, the spiritual or karmic body, is the one that holds the blueprint for why you incarnated in the first place. And this isn't new age stuff. This is ancestral wisdom that every traditional culture understood. The Greeks had it. The Chinese had it. The Ayurvedic system has it. Indigenous cultures worldwide have it. And we lost it when Western medicine decided that anything that you can't measure in a lab doesn't exist. So let's bring it back with plants, with food, with planetary wisdom, and with practical protocols that you can start today. First, let's define what we're actually talking about. The spiritual body is the dimension of you that exists beyond this single lifetime. It's your soul's journey, your karmic patterns, your dharma, your life's purpose, and the lessons that you came here to learn. In medical astrology, which I practice using Culpepper's framework, this is governed primarily by Neptune for spirituality and connection to the divine. It's also governed by Jupiter, which rules spiritual expansion and higher wisdom. And then also the moon's nodes. The north node shows where your soul is heading, and the south node is revealing what you're releasing from past patterns. Now, when your spiritual body is out of alignment, there will definitely be signs. Existential emptiness, even when life looks successful. Chronic feeling of, is this all that there is? Repeating the same life lessons over and over, same relationship patterns, same career blocks, same self-sabotage. Feeling like you're wearing a costume of somebody else's life, like you're living a life that's not yours. Loss of meaning, loss of connection to something greater than yourself. Spiritual crises, dark night of the soul experiences, and physical illness that has no clear medical cause, but it feels like your body is screaming at you to stop. Now, here's the piece that makes my approach different from most spiritual teachers. The spiritual body doesn't exist in a vacuum. It is intimately connected to your other four bodies, and you cannot heal one without addressing the other. So let's talk about how the spiritual body connects to the physical body. When your soul is misaligned with your life path, your physical body rebels. I've seen it 1,000 times. You have a high-powered executive who develops chronic fatigue that forces them to stop. People pleasers who get autoimmune conditions because their body is literally attacking the false self that they are presenting to the world. The artist who is trapped in accounting, who develops migraines every Sunday night. Your body is your soul's messenger. And when you ignore the whispers of misalignment, it shouts to you through your symptoms. From a medical astrology perspective, this is often seen through hard aspects to Saturn, who is known as the karmic taskmaster, or Pluto, who's known as the soul's transformer. And these affect the sixth house of help. Your chart is literally showing you where soul work manifests in physical form. Now, in connection to the mental body, soul disconnection creates specific thought patterns, persistent negative self-talk that sounds like, I'm wasting my life. It manifests as the inability to envision a future that actually excites you. Mental loops around, I should do this versus I want to do this. And philosophical despair, nihilism. What is the point even? Type of thinking. Comparison to others who seem to have found their thing. Now, medically, as far as medically astrology, Mercury aspects to Neptune or to the lunar nodes often show this. The mind is trying to process soul information, but getting lost in the confusion. Now, when we're talking about connection to the emotional body, this is where it gets interesting. So soul misalignment creates what I call sourceless grief. This deep sadness that therapy can't quite touch because it's not about anything that happened to you. It's about what's not happening, the unlived life, the unexpressed gifts, the purpose that is left dormant. I've worked with people who have processed every childhood wound, done all the emotional healing work, and still carry this ache. That is soul grief. That's the emotional body crying out for the spiritual body to come into alignment. Now, when you have moon aspects to the lunar nodes or Neptune square Venus, these signatures will show that the emotional body is responding to your soul's curriculum. And then when we're talking about the energetic body, so when the spiritual body is blocked, the crown chakra dims, the third eye gets cloudy, you lose access to intuition, to your divine guidance, to that inner knowing. Your aura contracts and your energetic field literally shrinks because you are not occupying your full spiritual space. I can see this energetically in clients before we even talk. I can sense that upper chakra shut down, and no amount of Reiki or energy work will fully open it until you address that soul level blockage. This is Uranus and Neptune's work in your chart, the higher octave planets that connect us to that divine consciousness. Now, the five bodies will always work together. So imagine this scenario. And I've seen this exact pattern dozens of times. Client comes in, successful career, making six figures, healthy diet, exercises regularly, goes to therapy, does all the right things, but still feels like they're dead inside. Now, if I only looked at the physical body, I'd say, great, keep doing what you're doing. If I just look at the mental or emotional, maybe I'd send them for more therapy. If I only look at the energetic, I could do some healing work and they'd feel better for a week, but then crash again. But when we look at all 5 bodies through medical astrology and a clinical assessment, I see that the soul is screaming to be a healer, but they're trapped in corporate law. It's a spiritual body issue, which creates existential despair in the mental body, sourceless grief in the emotional body, chronic fatigue in the physical body, and an energetic shutdown. That's when we can actually create transformation, not just by fixing one body, but aligning all 5 with the soul's true path. Now let's get practical. In my Mediterranean and Alpine heritage, I am French, Greek, and Italian. Food was never just food. Every meal was an opportunity to feed all 5 bodies, including the soul. My yaya, which is my Greek grandmother, didn't talk about soul food as a concept. She just knew that certain foods were for certain purposes, and the spiritual foods, those were treated with reverence. The first one is honey. Honey is ruled by Jupiter, the planet of expansion, higher wisdom, spiritual growth, and divine connection. In Greek tradition, honey was called food of the gods, not metaphorically, literally. Ambrosia, the nectar of immortality, was a honey-based elixir. Why? Because honey doesn't rot. It's eternal, just like our souls. My yaya would give us honey on an empty stomach in the morning. 1 spoonful in warm, not boiling, water. She would say it opens the doors. And I didn't understand that as a child, but now I know. Jupiter opens doors to higher consciousness, and honey carries that signature. Clinically speaking, honey contains compounds that support your pineal gland, which is your third eye. It's your spiritual antenna. And it's not woo-woo, it's biochemistry. So the traditional preparation, first thing in the morning, 1 tablespoon of raw local honey in warm water, and set an intention for the day. This is Jupiter medicine. You're inviting expansion and divine guidance into your day. You can use honey in rituals. You can drizzle it on bread or fruit as an offering. In the Greek tradition, we leave honey cakes at crossroads for Hecate, and she is the goddess of thresholds and transformation. Honey sweetens the transition between the worlds. The next one is olive oil. It is a sun-ruled food, and under the sun's rulership, it expresses consciousness, divine light, and life force itself. In Mediterranean spirituality, first pressed olive oil wasn't just food. It was used to anoint and to bless and to consecrate. Why? Because it carries solar consciousness. It's liquid sunlight transformed through the tree. The olive tree itself is sacred. It lives for thousands of years, survives drought and fire, even being cut down because it regenerates from the root. It is literally a symbol of the immortal soul. Now, olive farmers would save the first pressing of the season, and then they would use that oil for special occasions, births, weddings, blessings. That oil fed the soul before it fed the body. Now, clinically, olive oil supports brain health, it reduces inflammation, but spiritually, it illuminates. It brings solar consciousness directly into your cells. Now, traditional use, you would take 1 tablespoon of a really good olive oil on an empty stomach, especially during times of spiritual darkness or confusion. It lets the sun's medicine guide you back to clarity. You can cook with intention. Every time you pour olive oil, remember that you're inviting divine light into your food. The next spiritual food is red wine, right? Jupiter and Neptune co-rule wine. Jupiter for spiritual expansion and Neptune for mysticism and dissolving boundaries. Now, let me be clear, because I am not advocating alcohol abuse. I am talking about sacred, intentional, moderate use as was practiced by our ancestors spiritually. Spiritually speaking, wine was never about getting drunk. It was about communion, literally making common, creating union with the divine. The Christian sacrament, ancient Greek symposia, Egyptian wine offerings, it's all the same principle. Wine thins the veil between human and divine consciousness. Dionysus, the god of wine, was called the liberator, not because wine makes you lose control, but because in a sacred context, it frees the soul from the prison of mundane consciousness. One glass of red wine, blessed and intentionally consumed with gratitude and reverence, that is soul medicine. Half a bottle consumed mindlessly in front of Netflix, yeah, that's probably just poisoning yourself. And if you're in recovery or abstaining from alcohol for any reason, black grapes, especially eaten whole with the skin and the seeds, carry the same blood building, heart opening, spiritually ecstatic energy. In fact, resveratrol and the antioxidants are even more concentrated. So you can also drink pure grape juice, preferably like a dark Concord or similar. That's closer to wine energetically without the alcohol. The symbolism is the same: blood, abundance, divine pleasure, connection to Dionysus, and the sacred feminine. Now, traditionally, on significant days, new moons, solar returns, sacred holidays, pour a glass of good red wine. Offer a libation, which is pouring a small amount onto the earth as an offering, and then drink the rest slowly with gratitude. Next is one of my favorites, and that's figs. This is another Jupiter food associated with wisdom and spiritual abundance and sacred knowledge. In Greek mythology, figs were the first fruit Demeter gave to humanity. The fig tree was sacred to Dionysus. Buddha achieved enlightenment under the Bodhi tree, which is a type of fig. So why figs for spiritual work? They are hermaphroditic flowers that are turned inside out. They represent the hidden mysteries revealed. Perfect symbolism for soul work. What is hidden inside, which is your true purpose, is turned outward into manifestation. Fresh figs were the first fruit offered to the gods in temple ceremonies. The sweetness represents spiritual nourishment. The seeds represent the fertility of the soul's purpose. Now, traditionally, you would eat figs during Jupiter transits, right? So look up when Jupiter is well aspected in your chart. Offer them before meditation or prayer. You can make fig and honey cakes for ritual work and offerings. My Gaga used to make fresh figs, and then she would drizzle them with honey and cover them with crushed walnuts, which are also Jupiter ruled. And when you eat this slowly, it can be used as a form of prayer. Next is barley and ancient grains. So Saturn's grounding. Saturn rules barley, wheat, rye, and these grains anchor the soul into earthly purpose. And that seems contradictory, right? Saturn for spiritual work. But here's the wisdom. Your soul didn't incarnate to float into the ethers. You came here to do something. Saturn is the taskmaster that says, yes, you are a soul, but you're also in a body on the earth, and you have work to do. The Eleusinian mysteries, the most sacred spiritual initiation in Greece, used a barley-based drink called kykeon. Why? Because spiritual awakening without grounding is just dissociation. Saturn's grains root the spiritual experience into practical reality. So now, traditionally, this would be like a barley soup, ancient grain breads, farro, spelt, especially if you're doing deep spiritual work and need to stay grounded. Saturn says, yes, expand into Neptune's mysticism, but come back and build something real with it. Next is pomegranates. So pomegranates are ruled by Pluto, not a surprise, the planet of death and rebirth and soul transformation. In the Persephone myth, she ate 6 pomegranate seeds in the underworld. This bound her to return there annually. And this isn't a curse, it's an initiation. Persephone becomes the psychopomp, the guide for souls, because she has experienced death and rebirth. So eating pomegranate is like eating the mystery of transformation. Each seed becomes a soul lesson. The blood red juice is the life force that persists through death. Now, traditionally, during Pluto transits, during your personal underworld experiences like loss and grief and ego death, eat pomegranate seeds one at a time mindfully. Each seed becomes an integration of the lesson. And then we have walnuts. Look at a walnut. It looks like a brain, right? Traditional wisdom said like treats like. But the deeper message is walnuts feed the higher mind, Jupiter's domain of philosophy and spiritual understanding. In Greek tradition, we eat honey and walnuts during philosophical discussions, during divination work, before you're making a big decision. Clinically speaking, walnuts support brain health and they're full of omega-3 fatty acids. Spiritually, they support higher reasoning and divine intellect. So you could crush walnuts with honey and consume this before or after meditation or when you're seeking higher truth. Now we get into our plant allies. The herbs and resins that have been used for spiritual work across millennia. And I'm going to give you the planetary correspondences because timing does matter. Working with sun herbs on Sunday during the sun's hour is not superstition. That is aligning your work with the cosmic energies that are currently flowing. So the first one I want to talk about is frankincense, which is Boswellia sacra. This is a sun herb. This is the spiritual work resin. 5,000 years of use across every major spiritual tradition, Catholic churches, Hindu pujas, ancient Egyptian temples, the Yemeni ceremonies, all burning frankincense. Why? Because it works. Clinically, boswellic acids in frankincense cross the blood-brain barrier and they affect the pineal gland, which is your crown chakra, your direct line to divine consciousness. It's not just symbolic, it's actually measurable. Now, the sun rules frankincense and governs consciousness and illumination and divine connection. So the best way to use this is to either burn the resin on charcoal during meditation, prayer, or ritual work. That's every day that I sit here with you guys. It's burning. You can use it as an essential oil. If you put 2 or 3 drops in a diffuser or dilute it into a carrier oil and anoint it on the crown of the head before you practice any kind of spiritual practice. Now, frankincense essential oil can be taken internally if it is of a therapeutic grade. You would add 1 drop into a tablespoon of honey to support pineal function. Now, I use frankincense for clients experiencing spiritual crisis, crown chakra blockage, or feeling cut off from their divine guidance. And like I said, I'm so partial to it that I burn it to center and clear before we meet here every single time. Mugwort. Mugwort is Artemisia vulgaris. It is a moon Venus herb. It is a dream herb, the witch's herb, the plant that opens the veil. It is named for Artemis, who is the goddess of moon and magic and liminal spaces. Venus also claims her for women's mysteries and intuitive wisdom. Mugwort facilitates dream work. And I don't mean you'll have weird dreams. I mean that you'll be able to access soul memory and karmic patterns and messages from your higher self that only come through when the conscious mind is asleep. Now, you can stuff a small pillow with dried mugwort and sleep with it near your head. You want to keep a dream journal. You're doing soul work while you sleep, so being able to write it down right as you wake up is a good idea. You can use mugwort as a tea. A teaspoon of dried leaf in hot water before bed. This is not like a nightly thing. This is for intentional dream work. You can burn mugwort as an incense to cleanse a space before divination or tarot reading or any kind of intuitive work. You want to time this around the new moon because it's for illuminating soul paths, and full moon is for cleansing out old energies. So make sure that you're using it at the correct time. Now, this is a very powerful herb and it is not for use during pregnancy, so follow accordingly. Next will be rosemary. Rosmarinus officinalis. It is a sun herb. It's for remembrance, but what are we remembering? We're remembering our soul purpose. Solar rosemary brings clarity to the spiritual path. It cuts through confusion. It illuminates the way forward. It helps you remember who you actually are versus who you've been conditioned to be. In the Mediterranean tradition, we burn rosemary to cleanse spaces before important spiritual work. You wear it in your hair during ceremonies. Brides will carry it for blessings. Now, clinically, rosemary improves cognitive function, memory, and circulation to the brain. Spiritually, it circulates divine consciousness through your entire being. So now you can burn it as a smudge for spiritual clarity. You can put the essential oil in a diffuser during meditation. Culinary, you can liberally use it in cooking, especially on Sunday dinner. And then that way, every meal becomes medicine, not just for the brain, but also for the soul. And tea, just put a fresh rosemary sprig in some hot water and drink it when you're doing your bills or have to make an important decision. So you can add a strong rosemary tea to bath water for full body spiritual cleansing. The next herb that I want to talk about is bay laurel. It's Laurus nobilis, also a sun herb. It is Apollo's sacred plant, the leaf of prophecy and divination and divine inspiration. The Pythia at Delphi, the most famous oracle in ancient Greece, would chew bay leaves before channeling prophecy. Why? Because bay opens the channel to the divine voice. It is sun ruled, brings in solar consciousness and clear spiritual vision. It's protective and purifying, and you can use it in a myriad of ways. So you can write intentions or prayers on the bay leaves and burn them to send your message to the divine. You can place bay leaf under your pillow before you have to make important decisions because Apollo uses dreams to speak. You can burn one leaf before meditation or divination work. You can choose to cook with it intentionally. That Sunday pot roast with bay leaf, you're stirring in solar wisdom. You can steep bay leaves in hot water and add that to the bath for spiritual purification. I tell clients often that if you're facing a major life choice and need clarity, if you work with bay leaf for a full lunar cycle, the answers will come. You will get the answers that you're looking for. Next is one of my favorites. It's Angelica, also known as the scientific name is Angelica archangelica, another sun herb named for the archangels. This is your plant of spiritual protection. In traditional European folk magic, Angelica protected against evil spirits, curses, and negative energies. But when you look at it practically, Angelica creates strong energetic boundaries so that you can do spiritual work without any kind of interference. When you are opening to higher consciousness, you become temporarily vulnerable, and Angelica becomes that garden at the gate. Now, you can carry Angelica root in a small pouch for spiritual protection. You can make a tea from the root. You're going to have to let it steep for about 15 minutes because it is a root. So make sure that you do that. And then you would use that before spiritual practice. You can make a strong tea and add it to your bathwater, again, for energetic protection during spiritual work. You can grow it at your front door. That is traditional European protection, rosemary and angelica at the front door. The best time to work with angelica is on Sunday for maximum protective power. The next herb is sage. Salvia officinalis. It literally means to heal or to save in Latin. It is Jupiter's wisdom plant for spiritual purification, accessing higher guidance. The smoke doesn't just clear bad energy, it creates a sacred space. It elevates the vibration. It invites in higher wisdom. Jupiter's expansiveness, opening doors to divine consciousness. Now, you can do this through burning dried sage before a spiritual practice. Smudging is legitimate if it is done with respect and within a tradition. You can make a tea of fresh or dried sage in hot water, especially during Jupiter transits. When you're talking culinary use, you could use brown butter sage medicine. That is going to combine Jupiter's expansion with the sun consciousness because butter is a sun food. So that's butter and sage wisdom equals soul food. Now, you can also make a strong infusion for a bath. Now, I use sage most when clients are feeling spiritually stuck or closed off, especially if they're unable to access that higher wisdom or guidance from themselves. Now, St. John's wort, Hypericum perforatum, is a huge sun herb. It's the light bringer. It's the plant that guides souls out of the darkness. It was named for John the Baptist, traditionally harvested on the summer solstice, because that's when solar power is at its peak. Those red droplets from the flowers, medieval lore says that it was the blood of John the Baptist. Alchemists said it was concentrated solar essence. Now, it is clinically proven for depression, but understand what that means spiritually. Depression is often a spiritual crisis. The soul is trapped in darkness. It's unable to find its way back to divine light. St. John's wort is literal light medicine. Those little perforations in the leaves, legend says that when evil tried to destroy the plant, it fought back, and those holes are proof of its victory. It survived, and your soul will survive too. You can use it in a tincture, 30 drops 3 times daily during spiritual crisis or dark night of the souls. Fresh flowering tops is best. If you're going to make a tea from St. John's wort, it's always better if it's fresh. Now, you can infuse the flowers into olive oil, left in the sunlight for 3 weeks or so, creates a blood red oil, which is perfect for anointing during spiritual darkness. Now, these you want to harvest on the summer solstice at peak sun for maximum potency. Please note, St. John's wort is photosensitizing, so you need to be careful with sun exposure. It also interacts with many medications, so please check with a healthcare provider before you use it. Now, lavender, Lavandula augustifolia, is a mercury herb. Mercury rules lavender because it helps with communication with the divine. It helps with mental clarity for spiritual work, nervous system calming, so that you can actually hear your soul's voice. Your soul is constantly speaking to you, but your nervous system is so activated that most people can't hear it. So lavender quiets that mental chatter so that divine messages can come through. Now, you can do this with essential oil in a diffuser during your meditation. You can put fresh lavender under your pillow for prophetic dreams. You can drink lavender tea before a spiritual practice to help calm your mind, the monkey mind. And you can also use it in a spiritual bath. It's great when you mix it with rosemary because that gives you mental clarity and spiritual vision. Now, as far as timing goes, Wednesday is Mercury's day for enhanced communication with your higher self. So if you're going to use this medicine, if you want to make it more potent, don't forget the timing of it. Next would be blue lotus, Nymphaea caerulea. It's really hard to say. I apologize. It's a moon Venus herb used in ancient Egyptian practices. They considered it sacred. It was used in ceremony for thousands of years. It is moon ruled for its mystical vision. It is Venus ruled for its divine love consciousness. Now, blue lotus creates a mild euphoria and enhanced states of consciousness. It's not intoxicating, but it's definitely consciousness shifting. The Egyptians knew what they were doing. Now, you can make a tea of this using 5 to 10 grams of dried flower in hot water. You want to steep it for a good long time, about 20 minutes. The Egyptians used to steep blue lotus in red wine for several weeks, and then they would drink that in sacred ceremony. Now, you can smoke the dried petals. It isn't commonly done, but it is traditional. I've done it. I really enjoy it. But if you're not a smoker, I can understand why you would not. Now, there is some legal status issues with Blue Lotus, so make sure to check your area for the rules. And timing, full moon, lunar potency, that's the best. Next is Damiana. Damiana is Turnera diffusa. It is a Venus-Mars herb. This herb was sacred to the Maya. It was used for spiritual ecstasy and connection to divine pleasure. And this is important because not all spiritual work is suffering and transcendence. Sometimes soul alignment is about remembering that joy and pleasure and passion are just as sacred. Damiana feels like your soul came here to feel, to experience, to be fully alive. So when you have that Venus Mars combo, divine love and sacred passion, it's amazing. Now you can use a couple teaspoons of dried leaf in hot water as a tea. The traditional Mayan practice was to smoke it before ceremony. You can take a tincture, 30 drops is great for creative blocks or when your soul feels like it's just kind of down. And then we have yarrow, which is Achillea millefolium. It is a Venus herb that is named for Achilles, who is the warrior healer. Venus rules it for spiritual boundary setting and energetic protection. So yarrow helps you discern. This is mine to carry. This is not mine to carry. It is essential for empaths and healers who take on everyone else's soul burdens and forget their own path. Now you can take this as a tea, 1 teaspoon in hot water before energy work. It's great as a strong infusion in your bath, especially if you have worked with clients that are dealing with heavy things or any kind of spiritual service. You can use dried yarrow as smoke for boundary setting and for protection. If someone comes to me and is a healer or a coach, I work with them to maintain a yarrow practice because you cannot do your soul work if you are carrying everybody else's sorrows. So let's talk about some spiritual protocols, right? I've given you all this knowledge. Let's talk about how to actually work with this in daily life because spiritual alignment isn't just meditation retreats and mystical experiences. It's a daily practice. It's integrating the sacred into the mundane. Now, morning soul practice, about 15 minutes. Best to do it at sunrise. Honey water, 1 tablespoon of raw honey in warm water on an empty stomach. As you drink, set your intention. Today, I align with my soul's highest purpose. Light some frankincense incense or resin or diffuse the essential oil. Take 3 deep breaths while focusing on your crown chakra. Journaling prompt you could use would be, what is my soul asking me to do today? And then write for 5 minutes without editing. Your very first uncensored thoughts. That's your soul speaking to you. You could use rosemary tea or anointing, a small cup of rosemary tea or 1 drop of rosemary essential oil mixed into some olive oil and anointed on the third eye and the crown. Solar clarity for the day ahead. You could use cooking as a spiritual practice. And this is where Mediterranean wisdom kind of shines. Every meal is an opportunity to feed all 5 bodies. So you could do Sunday soul meals. Roast a chicken with rosemary and bay and sage. Drizzle your best olive oil over it, right? Make ancient grain bread with honey butter. Now, your intention is that this food nourishes my soul's purpose. As you prepare this meal, you're not just cooking. You're stirring in solar consciousness, olive oil, rosemary, bay, Jupiter's wisdom with sage and honey, and Saturn's grounding with ancient grains. All 5 bodies get fed. And my yaya taught me, never cook angry, never cook resentful. because your energy goes into the food and your family eats your energy. Cooking with soul alignment means everyone at the table receives that same blessing. You could do Thursday soul meals, right? Focusing on more Jupiter foods like lentil soup with sage and bay. You could do a fig and walnut salad with honey dressing and red wine that's you've blessed. The intention is this food expands my spiritual wisdom. Now, you could do an evening soul practice. Take 20 minutes before you go to bed and do a dream work protocol. Drink some mugwort tea, right? Drink it slowly with intention to receive the soul's guidance in your dream. You could anoint yourself with lavender and massage it into your temples and third eye. Not only does this calm the mental chatter, it's going to allow your soul voice to emerge so that you can actually hear it. You could set dream intentions before sleep. Clearly state, I ask for clarity on whatever specific soul question that you have, and place a mugwort pillow near your head. You could keep a dream journal. Keep it by your bed. When you wake up, before moving or speaking, write down every fragment you can remember. Symbols matter, repeat images matter. Your soul will speak to you in metaphor. Now, you could also do a monthly rituals following new moon. The new moon is for planting intentions, for calling in what your soul needs next. So you could take a spiritual bath with angelica for protection and rosemary for clarity, lavender for peace, and then bay for divine guidance. Now you would steep all the herbs together in hot water for about 20 minutes, strain them, and add them to your bath. You could create bay leaf intentions. So you would write your soul's desires on bay leaves. Be specific, not, I want to be happy, but I want to be practicing healing work full time by the next autumn equinox, or I want $5,000 in my bank by October. Burn bay leaves. Safely burn each leaf, releasing the intention to the universe, because Jupiter's expansiveness is going to carry it forward. You can anoint with oil, olive oil with frankincense essential oil, anoint the crown and the third eye and the heart, and seal those intentions into the body. You can create a sacred meal. Prepare something beautiful, figs and honey and walnuts, some good bread, some olive oil, and eat slowly with gratitude. Feed your soul's new intentions. Now, if you're going to be working on the full moon is for illumination. It's for revealing what needs to be seen, for releasing what no longer serves us. So this is when you want to place your moon water out. And then the moon water can be used for both anointing or drinking, or medicine making. It charges the water with the lunar consciousness. You could make a yarrow tea or bath for boundary work and ask, what is it that I am carrying that is not mine? And then be able to release it. You can use mugwort for illumination. You can light a mugwort bundle and let the smoke wash over you and ask, what does my soul need me to see? You can do release rituals where you write down whatever you're releasing on paper, old patterns, false identities, pasts that aren't yours. Burn it, let it go. Now, you can also work with seasonal cycles. So at the spring equinox, you're focusing on new beginnings. Your plant medicine is going to be nettle for vitality and dandelion for new growth. And the soul work is what new path is emerging. Now, if you're talking about the summer solstice, we're talking about maximum light. Your plant medicine is going to be St. John's wort or chamomile. And the soul work asks, how am I shining my soul's light? What am I doing? At the autumn equinox, we're talking more about balance and harvest. So we're talking about rose and hawthorn. And the soul work asks, what has my soul created this year so far? And then at the winter solstice, you're going to be focusing on death and rebirth. So your plant medicine is going to be like frankincense and myrrh. And your soul work is going to be what must die so my soul can be reborn. Now, this is advanced but powerful. Your natal chart shows your soul's blueprint, and key transits are soul milestones. So the first is going to be your Saturn return. It's soul maturity, major life restructuring. So you're going to want to work with Saturn plants like barley and comfrey and horsetail. On your Jupiter return, which happens every 12 years, soul expansion opportunities. Work with Jupiter plants like sage and honey and figs and walnuts. Your nodal returns, which happen every 19 years, is a karmic reset. So your north node is going to show where your soul's heading. Your south node is what you're releasing. And then your Pluto transits, which is soul transformation through crisis. Work with Pluto plants like pomegranate and garlic. These are your underworld initiations. If you don't know your chart, start learning. Your birth chart is literally your soul's operating manual. Let me give you a real example about how all 5 bodies work together for soul healing. Now, this is a composite of several clients, but the pattern is very common. We have a 42-year-old woman. She is a successful attorney, beautiful family, all the external markers of making it, comes to me with chronic migraines, insomnia, and what her doctor called treatment-resistant depression. Now, here's what I saw. In the physical body, chronic inflammation, hormonal imbalance, exhausted adrenals. Her body was literally screaming at her to stop. In the mental body, persistent thoughts of, is this all there is? An inability to envision a future that she was actually excited about and ruminating on, feeling like she wasted her potential. In the emotional body, deep grief with no clear source, emotional numbness alternating with crying spells, and anger at herself for feeling ungrateful. And then in the energetic body, her crown chakra almost completely closed. Third eye murky, solar plexus weak. She felt like she had no personal power. Her root was unstable, and her aura was gray and contracted. And then in the spiritual body, this was the core. Soul wanted to be a healer. She'd wanted it since childhood, but family pressure, student loans, societal expectations, and she became a lawyer instead. For 15 years, she'd been living somebody else's life. So we worked on all 5 bodies, physically, an anti-inflammatory Mediterranean diet, emphasizing sacred foods, herbs for adrenal support and hormone balance, movement that felt joyful, not punishing. Mentally, we did some cognitive work around her inherited beliefs, success meaning law practice, healing work isn't valuable, journaling on her soul questions, rosemary and sage for mental clarity. Emotionally, we worked on processing grief of an unlived life, releasing resentment towards family, forgiving herself. Mugwort dream work to access her emotional roots, and rose for heart opening. Energetically, we worked with frankincense and angelica to open her crown chakra and protect during the transition, yarrow for boundaries, and teaching her how to regularly clear her energy. And spiritually, this was the foundation. We used her astrological chart to understand timing. She was in a Saturn return, which is perfect for major life restructuring. Daily spiritual practices, sacred meals, working with Jupiter on Thursdays for courage to expand into her true path. Within 6 months, her migraines were reduced by 80%. Sleeping through the night, depression lifting, but most importantly, she started training as an herbalist. She's now in transition, building her healing practice while she reduces her law hours. Her physical symptoms didn't heal because we treated the symptoms. They healed because she aligned all 5 bodies with her soul's purpose. And that is the power of this framework. And that's why I will always believe in it. So here's what I want you to understand. Spiritual alignment isn't a luxury for after you've handled everything else. It's not the cherry on top of the Wellness Sunday. Your spiritual body is the foundation. It's the blueprint. When it's misaligned, everything else will struggle. Your physical health, your mental peace, your emotional stability, and your energy field. And our ancestors knew this. Every traditional culture had plants, foods, and practices for soul nourishment. We lost this wisdom. Western medicine decided that only matter matters, but we can reclaim it starting today. Start with honey water and an intention every morning. Cook with rosemary and remember your soul's purpose while you stir. Burn frankincense and open your crown chakra. Pay attention to your dreams. Notice the patterns that keep repeating. Those are your soul lessons asking to be learned. And understand that this work takes time. Your soul is eternal, and a few months of practice is nothing in soul time. Be patient, be consistent, and trust the process. The plants are here to help you. The planets are here to guide you. Sacred foods are here to nourish all 5 bodies. Your soul knows why you're here. It's just waiting for you to remember. If you're realizing your spiritual body needs attention, if you felt that recognition that, oh, that might be me, moment while you're watching this, I want to invite you to go deeper. I offer a comprehensive 5 bodies assessment that maps all 5 dimensions of your health: physical, mental, emotional, energetic, and spiritual. You will receive a detailed 50-page personalized report with specific protocols tailored to your body, your soul, your blueprint, your astrological chart. This includes a medical astrology analysis of your soul's purpose, customized herbal protocols with planetary timing, sacred food recommendations for your specific constitution, specific practices for each of the 5 bodies, and timeline for implementation based on cosmic timing. I will leave the link down in the description. And if you haven't yet, I invite you to go back and watch the other 4 videos in this series on the physical body, mental body, emotional body, and energetic body, because remember that they're all working together. Subscribe for more food is medicine, wisdom, and ancestral herbalism and medical astrology. If you turn on notifications, you won't miss when I drop the next deep dive. And if this resonated, I would love it if you'd leave a comment. Tell me, what did your soul whisper to you while watching this? I read every single comment. Your soul did not come here to be managed. It didn't incarnate to be optimized or perfectly balanced or to fit into someone else's idea of enlightenment. It came here to experience, to evolve, to remember what it already knows through the process of forgetting and then finding it again. And that happens in a body on earth through eating and breathing and loving and grieving and creating and destroying and starting over. Our spiritual body isn't separate from the other 4 bodies. It's what holds them all together. It's the thread running through everything. The reason you're here, the lessons you're learning, the wisdom that you are carrying forward. This is the work, not transcending your humanity, but diving deeper into it, not escaping the mundane, but discovering the sacred woven through every single moment. You're not broken and you're not behind. You are exactly where your soul needs you to be to learn what you came here to learn. And the spiritual body doesn't demand perfection. It asks for presence, for consciousness, for the willingness to show up to your own life and ask, what is this teaching me? What am I becoming? That's the question, Not what's wrong with me, but what am I becoming? Welcome to the spiritual body. Welcome home to yourself. I'm Danielle, and I'll see you in the next one.